Alright, it is top 10 list time again. Disney is home to some of the greatest films of all time. In fact, if I were to create a top 100 list of the best films of all time, a good majority of the selections would go to Disney. However, while Disney might be home to some great classic films, there are those films by Disney that were, in my opinion, wronged, underappreciated, or just plain unnoticed by fans and critics. And I'm here to pick what I feel is the top 10 underrated Disney films. Now, just a fair warning, most of these films are from my generation. Now, let me give you the usual warning. If you don't agree with some of my choices, please don't get angry. In fact, I would love to hear what your top 10 list would be. Okay, let's begin. Number 10. The Big Green, or as many fans like to call it, the soccer version of the Mighty Ducks, and that was one of the reasons why the Big Green kind of faded into the background without much notice. It was because many viewed it as just another Mighty Ducks ripoff. Coincidentally, it was released by the same studio that brought us the Mighty Ducks. But I actually really like the Big Green. True, it does share, for the most part, the same basic premise as the Mighty Ducks and the Bad News Bears, but I found the Big Green to be just as, or more entertaining than the Mighty Ducks. I thought the premise of a small rundown town that produces a great underdog soccer team was a much better premise than the lawyer who's haunted by a pee-wee hockey game and is on community service premise. Well, some of the kids are kind of stereotypical, like the character of Juan, and I'm a 100% hockey fan and not necessarily a soccer fan, but I found the Big Green to be very good. The kids are charming, and I think anyone who liked the Mighty Ducks and the Bad News Bears would love this. Number 9. Angels in the Outfield, the 1994 remake. This film got hammered by critics and moviegoers in its initial release, and it's still not very well liked today, and I honestly don't know why. The 1951 original was not exactly considered an overwhelming classic either. In fact, the story was kind of flawed, and it was centered around an adult rather than a kid. In the 1994 version, they went for more of a family-friendly attitude, wacky characters, and a bit more charm, and I thought it really paid off. This was more of the type of film where I think moviegoers and critics took it just a little too seriously. Some critics complained that the movie had too many depressing moments. For instance, the two main characters are orphans. One boy's mother has died, and his father's not exactly the best for him. From my standpoint, that it adds more sympathy to the character and makes you root for him more and more throughout the film. The climax is a bit goofy, but all in all, the remake I like better than the original. It's still flawed, but it's definitely a good movie to sit through. Number 8. Hocus Pocus. This was more of a critical flop than a moviegoer flop. I thought the film hit all the right notes. It's funny, witty, and has a strong cast to lead the film. However, I think the reason why critics panned it so much was because it was very different from a lot of Disney films at the time. The whole Virgin storyline was risky business, and rumor has it that the film just barely held on to the PG rating. I love the film's comedy, and the chemistry between Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker is wonderful throughout the film. And while some complain that they overacted a bit, I thought the overacting fit in quite well because it's a very over-the-top story. The younger actors are good too. In fact, I'm a little surprised they haven't had better careers. Thora Birch has done okay, but Omri Katz and Vanessa Shaw have kind of been left behind as far as starring roles go. But that's off topic. With Hocus Pocus, it's fun, witty, over the top, and has one really catchy music number. So how the hell did critics not like it? Number 7. 101 Dalmatians, the live-action version. I will never understand why fans and critics hated this film so much. When you have a classic such as the original animated version, you know that any remake or other adaptation is not going to quite live up to it. However, I love the live-action version. The story is still very much loyal to the original, with just a few modern-day enhancements, and the characters, for the most part, are 100% loyal to their animated counterparts, especially Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. Some fans complained about the dogs not talking, and in all honesty, I prefer it that way. Very few live-action films can pull off the talking pet gig, with one big exception being Homeward Bound. But when you have 101 Dalmatians, you need voices for all of them, and that's too much of a hassle on a live-action film. Some complained that the villains were a little too cruel, and the characters of Jasper and Horace were a bit too blue-humored for a kid's film at times, especially in their first appearance. But in my view, that's just Disney's way of getting the adults into it. Hey, they make me laugh, so I'm not complaining. So with 101 Dalmatians, it's true that it's not as good as the original, but I still think it's a great live-action version of it. And I like how it remains loyal to the source material, and I think it's a movie that everyone took the wrong way. Number 6. Popeye. I love Popeye. I love the cartoon, and I love this feature-length version of it. One of the biggest challenges of making this film for the creators was turning a 7-minute cartoon into an hour-and-a-half-long movie, and I thought the story that they came up with was good enough. Popeye is searching for his father, he rents a room with Olive Oyl and her family, and they start to fall in love. And like in the cartoon, she gets kidnapped by Bluto, Popeye tries to fight Bluto, but he gets pounded on, he then eats his spinach, and then he kicks Bluto's ass. It's just like the damn cartoon, and yet people hated the damn movie. In fact, its presentation is very cartoonish, and that's why I like it. I like it when a cartoon adaptation brings those cartoon elements into the film. For instance, the battle between Popeye, Bluto, and the octopus is very cartoonish, and it winds up being very entertaining because of it. The acting is my favorite because it mirrors the cartoon perfectly. It's over the top, it's hammy, it's Popeye. Number 5. The Pacifier. When I saw this film in theaters, I honestly liked it. I thought it was a good upgrade from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Kindergarten Cop. Again, this is more of a critical failure than a moviegoer failure. Critics completely missed the point of the film. With movies like Kindergarten Cop and The Pacifier, it's more of our action stars making fun of themselves in a way, and that's what makes it funny. Another film like this is Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. I liked it because while it's not really that realistic, it has a certain charm that really engrosses you into it. It has the elements that a family can really enjoy, but it also has the over-the-top action scenes that the younger action film fans can enjoy as well. It's also one of my favorite Vin Diesel films. Vin Diesel is pretty hit and miss when it comes to his acting skills, and seeing him in this really made me respect him a little more as an actor, showing that he was just more than a muscular action star. Number 4. The Lion King 1.5. Okay, this movie is the opposite. This was a hit with critics, but not with fans. And I hate to say this, but I'm agreeing with the critics on this one. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but I personally thought this movie was hilarious. It was definitely a hell of a lot better than Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, which lacked in both story and animation quality when compared to the first movie. In fact, I was really surprised that so much effort was put into 1.5, and so little was put into Simba's Pride, when you think it would be the other way around. I was very surprised that so many fans of the original film passed on this movie. I think it had a lot to do with the title. That alone gave people the impression that it was nothing special and that Disney was trying to milk the Lion King brand a little more. While that might actually be true, it might come as a surprise to most to find that Disney actually created a film that was actually very entertaining and is definitely worth watching. Number 3. Heavyweights. A movie can't get more ignored than Heavyweights. It was panned by critics and hardly seen by anybody in theaters. However, does that mean it was a bad movie? Not in Heavyweight's case. It's not the strongest story ever about a fitness trainer who buys out a children's fat camp and now wants to whip those kids into shape the hard way. However, what really makes this movie work is its cast and its characters. This cast works so well off of each other, and it also marks the first official starring role that Ben Stiller ever had. The child cast and their chemistry with Ben Stiller and just Stiller's over-the-top villain role is just absolutely hilarious. If I had to say anything about Stiller's brand of comedy, is that he always works best as a villain. In fact, this is my second favorite Stiller role, and the first one is ironically also a fitness nut from the movie Dodgeball. So check out Heavyweights, it's a great family flick. Number 2. A Goofy movie. First of all, I love the Goofy character. He's one of my all-time favorite Disney characters, and the original Goof Troop cartoon is one of the most underrated cartoons ever, and I thought it definitely deserved a much longer run than it got, because the original run only lasted 3 months. A Goofy movie was one of those Disney animated films which you would think would be successful, and yet for some reason it is constantly overlooked. It's a great father and son adventure tale with funny jokes. I love the story between Goofy and Max, Max showing signs of being a teenager, kind of being the rebellious son who doesn't always want to do what his father tells him, and Goofy trying to be the father who is trying to connect with his son and share some quality time. A Goofy movie is just a really charming movie. I really don't know why it's a movie that has been forgotten by so many, but I think it's really a standout. And number 1, Robin Hood. Disney's animated version of Robin Hood is probably one of their most unrecognized animated films. When everyone thinks of Disney animated films, they think of Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, etc. But one film that has really spent most of its existence kind of in the background was Robin Hood, Disney's animated version of the classic tale. Critics viewed it as one of Disney's weakest animated films, while moviegoers tend to rate it very low compared to other Disney films. I'll admit that it's not the strongest Disney animated film. I think that title belongs to The Lion King, but it definitely is a great movie that deserves a lot more credit than it's gotten. The animation is great for the 70s, and I love the voice acting and the overall charm that the film has. I think the initial problem that people had with this film is that Disney animations have garnered so much praise over the years leading up to this film, and with all the praise came certain expectations, and people expected Disney to spit out a classic every time an animated film came out. In fact, those expectations still hold up today. Since this film wasn't quite as good as Snow White or Bambi, people just hated it. I don't care. I love this movie. It's charming, funny, and I think it will please a lot of Disney fans. Alright, that's my top 10 underrated Disney films. Again, Disney might have come out with well-known hits that have come out over the years, but they've also come out with movies that have been left in the background that are actually really good too. Well everyone, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.